Hey there, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube art live stream. I post it pop art live stream. I'm Todd Nauck, professional comic book artist, and I'm going to be drawing Thanos on this. It's kind of like this bluish purple. I don't know if you call it maybe a light indigo. Let's call it a light shade of indigo. Post-it note. And so we're going to be drawing Thanos today. I'm thinking of maybe drawing the helmetless movie version of Thanos, because that is a version I have not drawn before. I thought that might be kind of a fun, interesting challenge. Because I've often drawn the comic book version, I've drawn him a number of times. But I thought maybe the movie version might be fun. So I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Hopefully you're staying well during this coronavirus stay-at-home order. Hopefully you're staying well, staying healthy. Thanks for coming to hang out with me. Feel free to just watch, or if you want to draw along, you're more than welcome to draw along as well. You can draw on a Post-it note or draw on whatever paper you have, sketchbook, notebook pad, whatever you have, and use whatever tools are at your disposal. Pencils, colored pencils, crayons, watercolor, markers of whatever sort. The main thing here is to have fun. So let's flip the camera around and let's get to drawing. Hope everyone's doing well today. Just plug into the rig here. All right, there we go. So let's start with some pencils. Pencil art, I'm going to start with my Unikura Toga 0.3 mechanical pencil with HB lead. And let's start to rough in Thanos' head. So I'm starting with a circle here, as I always do. Got to get that base part of the skull going. Now, Thanos has a lot of face. He's got a big jaw, that big wrinkly chin, so I want to make sure I leave enough real estate down here to accommodate all of that. So I'm going to come down from, let's see, we'll have his face. We'll have him kind of looking off here to the right a little bit. And I come down from the sides of the head. He's kind of got a wide face. Now, even though I'm drawing him in the movie version, I'm going to draw him in my style. So I'm going to use some of my own art sensibilities, my own preference of shape and lines. So this isn't a life drawing illustration of Thanos. This is my comic book version of the movie character, much like I did with Hela a couple of days ago. So we have the eye line, the nose line, and then the mouth line. Now with Thanos, he's got a shorter nose and a larger gap between his nose and mouth. So I'm kind of accounting for that. He's always had a very short, very close eye-nose ratio sort of thing there. Not that the eyes are close together, but the nose does not come down far on his face. He does not have a long nose. It's a very short nose. So let's see. I'm going to figure out a bit of the side of his head, because as I said, he's looking off to our right. We're going to work in some neck muscles. He's a big guy. He is a very big guy. Maybe we'll turn his head so his head's turned that way. So the neck muscles are going to pull this way, and then we come down to the shoulder here. So he's kind of like he's looking over his shoulder, surveying the scene, as he often does when he comes to take over a planet and do his Thanos thing. So let's see, let's figure out where his eyes are here. So the eyes, we don't want the eyes to get too big. If the eyes are too big, he'll look a little too youthful. So we don't want him to give him big eyes, but we don't want them to be too terribly small. So we're gonna just kind of play with the size there, just to kind of get it where I would want it to be. And then his nose. So I'm going to work on the bridge there a little bit. And the tip of his nose right there. So these are just my basic shapes. And when I come in with the inks, I'll pick the lines I want to determine how he looks. Now he often has those cocked eyebrows. They kind of point up at the sides a little bit. He's got that kind of brow ridge there. A few wrinkles across his brow. Some wrinkles around his eyes. Now I'm going to figure out his cheek shape here. So I'm going to kind of do this kind of, it's almost like a diamond shape, but a little bit more circular. And if I pull from the center of the eyes down, I can figure out the sides of his mouth. And then we got a lot of real estate for that chin there. So we have the jawline cutting down to the chin. The muscles that pull from the nose. These are all just my guidelines. These are not the finished art lines. So we got that divot, that little trough from the bottom of the nose to the top of the lip. Got that figured in there. Probably give him a little bit of a sneer there. Kind of his lip, you know, he's always kind of got that sneer. So we'll see maybe just a little bit of his teeth. He's got a pretty full bottom lip. Going to adjust bring the chin down just a little bit more. And then we've got these wrinkles that run along the bottom of his chin. So these guidelines I have for where his mouth, the sides of his mouth are, this is a guideline to help me know how far to bring these chin wrinkles down. See, I have this ear set a little too high, so I'm going to adjust that down a little bit. That's the nice thing about this pencil sketch stage is I can make adjustments as I need to before I commit to the finished inked lines, because I can always erase or create new shapes a bit more easily in this pencil stage. So that's why I really enjoy taking advantage of scribbling out all my thought process. So that I can kind of really see where things at. Like I keep adjusting his jawline there because I want to get it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just looking for just enough accuracy. Just something I feel, can feel, I guess, good about. Like that's where I want it to be. I can make that adjustment so it can hopefully fit together a little bit better. So let's see, we're going to have the collar of his armor. I'm going to take a little liberty here. I'm going to kind of flare out the collar a little bit, just design-wise. Just kind of bulk up his armor, just so we can see a little bit more of the collar there. Just a little artistic liberty, if you will. And then down his shoulder here, shoulder over here. He's kind of got some trim. Let's see, I need to find... Okay, yeah, so we do see his... We're going to have him looking off panel here. He's looking off this way, so it's kind of telling a little bit of a story. So when we look at this picture of Thanos, and we look at his eyes, and we see that he's looking off to the side there, we're telling a story that now we as the viewer wonder, what he looking at? What's going on over there? Is he upset with Nebula? Has Gamora betrayed him yet again? Are the Avengers hitting the scene and about to bring the beat down? It lets the viewer kind of fill in the story however they want. So we have the little irises there. Just gonna flare out those nostrils a little bit more. And because he's kind of got a sneer here, his nose will be crinkling up a little bit there. And we'll see that more when we get to the ink stage. All right, so next up is, I think I feel good about those pencils there. We're gonna move into the inks now. And I thought it'd be fun to do colored inks for Thanos here. I thought it might look kind of interesting, so we're gonna experiment with that. So I'm gonna use my purple micron, the 05, and we're gonna do the main contour shapes here. A little bit thicker lines. I'm leaving thinner lines for the inner details of the face so things can stay fairly crisp and clean. A thicker line around the perimeter here of Thanos can give him more pop into the foreground, because thicker lines give a sense of what's in the foreground. Thinner lines can give us a sense of what's further back in the background. Also, thicker lines can convey more of a shadow line, like there's less light on that part of Thanos, where a thinner line might better convey this is where the light is hitting. So those are just two of the considerations of when I'm doing my thick and thins. What's in the foreground, what's in the middle ground, what's in the background. And then also, where is the light coming from and hitting or not hitting on whatever object it is I'm working on. Like I put a little thicker line there at the bottom of his earlobe, creates a sense of shadow, pops his ear off of his neck. It's these little subtleties all throughout the image. So I want to be really careful of how I translate this chin here. And before I do that, I want to work on the inside of his face. So once I get his mouth there, I can kind of figure out how I want to work on this chin. So we're going to hold off on the chin for just a moment. I'm going to switch to my 01 purple micron. The 01 purple. It's a thinner nib. Finer point nib, so I can get finer points, finer lines in the line art here. Especially on the nose here. I want nice thin lines so it separates. Each element from the other. I want really fine lines here around the eyes. Little tiny wrinkles around the eye, a little bottom part of the eyelid there. Kind of that cocky brow we had talked about just a moment ago. A few little lines there to kind of indicate the side of his head, and we're going to put just a few light wrinkle lines here in his brow. Especially here on the side, kind of conveying that arc. A little crinkle there on the nose for this sneer. It's a little bit of like a Billy Idol sneer. If you grew up in the 80s, you know who I'm referring to. Rock star Billy Idol. Just some cross-hatching here to convey that cheek. A little bit of the philtrum there. Now I can start figuring out how to put this chin together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the vertical lines up in kind of a textured sort of line. Where it's kind of a little wavily. Wavily? I was going to say wavy and wobbly at the same time. So it came out wavily. So not severe waves or wobbles, but just a little bit. And then I'm going to put these little separate ridges there to really convey the texture. So that was the 0.5. Now back to the 0.1. Now I can finish off neck muscles, maybe drop in a little bit of a darker area there underneath his chin. Now I'm going to switch over to my browns for his gold, the gold part of his armor here. I'm going to use brown to translate that. So get some, get that trim running through there. So this little section here will be dark blue, so I'll come in with a dark blue micron here in a moment. Just taking this all the way out to the edge. Now some dark blue, just cut it like that for some dark blue of his armor. Then we've got the inner, the pupils of his eyes. Which I'm going to translate as black. So I'm going to use the 0.005 micron. Just like that, and I'm going to come back with a little bit of that purple micron just to adjust his eyelids a little bit. Just add a bit of a thicker line just to kind of bring the eyelid down so he doesn't look too, like his eyes aren't too wide open. Now he also has these scars that run from his lip kind of outwards, so I'm going to kind of forgot these, so I'm going to rough those in. And with the purple micron, just very lightly put a very thin line through here. In fact, I'm going to thicken up some of these chin bumpy lines so that they don't get confused for the scar lines. So just coming in and just thickening up that line, these lines down here. Do a little cross hatching. Maybe add just a little more shadow here underneath his chin. Okay. So while that ink dries, I'll just cap my pens back so they don't dry out. I'm going to use my kneaded art gum eraser here and just gently remove all the graphite lines here so we get that crisp, clean artwork, line work. I have an idea of how I want to handle the background here, so I'm going to do something a little different for the background. But first we're going to get Thanos himself colored up first. I'm going to be coloring with Copic sketch markers, but use whatever you have. If you're going to take your illustration to color, use whatever you got on hand. So, I'm going to work from light or dark to light. So I'm going to use several different shades of purple here to achieve this. So I'm going to start with the V15. I'm going to hit all the kind of darker shadow areas first. It's like underneath the eye, underneath the nose, along that bridge. So I think of each plane, each angle of his face. And whatever angle is further away from the light, so our light source is pretty much coming from above. Maybe a little off to our left side. I'm going to keep in mind the light source, and that can help me kind of figure out how to sculpt out the shapes of his face. So this is just kind of an initial purple. Now that I've applied it here, I see it's kind of more of a mid-range purple, so I might come in with some darker purples here in just a moment. I'm just going to go ahead and write out the mid-range first. Just roll with this for now. And then we'll be coming in with some gray. This is a gray color here for some realistic shadows to follow. Actually, I really do like this shade of purple. We're going to come back with more of this V15 in a little bit. Right now I want to come in with some BV34. It's kind of more of a bluish purple. I want to use different shades of purple here to convey a little more texture to the colors of his purpley skin. So that was the BV34. Now let's see, I think I want to come... You know, this V15 really is the right shade of purple for the base shade of Thanos. So I'm going to just use more of this V15 right now. It's working for me, so I'm going to fill out a bit more of Thanos with this V15. Just really like how it's translating on this light indigo Post-it note color. So as you can see, I'm working the color towards the light. Towards the light. Let's try a little BV11. It's a little bit lighter shade of a bluish purple. Just going to work a little bit of this into here. Again, I'm just always thinking of the angles of his face. And so I've practiced it so much. I've studied it. I've practiced the angles of the face so much that I feel fairly confident to throw down these color swatches pretty quickly. So please know that that comes with the practice. Now for some V01. It's a very light shade of purple. We're really just going to fill out a lot of his face here. All this open area, or most of this open area, we're going to fill it out. Now, I like to use the lightest color shade to blend my colors when I'm working. If you're working with Copic markers, this is my blending technique. I don't use the colorless blender to get the colors to all blend together. I just don't like that effect. I like to use the colorless blender if I want to do like a textured background effect. I'll use it then. but I used to try using it to like blend and schmooze all the colors together, and it just didn't work right for me. I just didn't like the way it looked. It wasn't achieving what I wanted. And then I discovered if I used the lightest shade, so of all these purples, this family of purples, using the lightest shade to go over all those colors can blend it to the place where I want it. I can get that smooth transition, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we're going to leave some light of the indigo of the board for the lightest shade and the highlight of his face, of his skin tone, if you will. So let's color up some armor. So I'm going to use, we want to kind of create a gold sort of look. So I'm going to use some Y21 to start off with. So it's going to be kind of our base yellowish color. And come in with some Y00. It's my lightest shade. And what helps for me in creating a gold sort of look is using some shades of gray. So I'm going to come in with a little warm gray. Let's try a little warm 2. Often we'll look at like the like golden objects. Like, so I'm actually have I have this reference material of this Thanos statue here. I can see the gold there. See, I did not draw that face, but seeing his facial structure helps. So I can look at the gold there and then determine what kind of color should I use to achieve that. So look at real life. Look at a photo of that texture you need to color, and then you can make your choices based on what you're seeing there. So it takes a trained eye to kind of get there. It takes a while to kind of develop that eye to see, oh, there's shades of brown, shades of purple, shades of green, or whatever it is in what it is you're coloring. So I'm going to come with some neutral gray 4, just to kind of give it that shadow reflective look. In there, and come in with a little light cool gray. We'll go with a little cool gray 2. Now if I ever feel I put too much gray in there, I can always come back with my yellows to give them the kind of the pump up and punch to it. So I can just go over it with that original yellow, Y21, color over it, and bring that yellow more to the foreground. A little more Y00. And that takes care of the gold part of his armor. Let's see, another piece of reference I was looking at, he has that dark blue. So we're going to drop some of that in here. I'm going to start with some B97, I believe. So because our light source is from above, the tops of his shoulders will be where kind of the light is hitting. So we're going to work dark towards that lighter shade. All right, so that takes care of his armor, pretty straightforward there. Now let's come in with some cool gray to give him some realistic shadows on his face. So I'm going to start with, I think I want to start with a cool gray 3. I think that's pretty nice for now. Going to have a lot of shadow around his eyes. Putting a lot of shadow around the eyes, I think, can really create for a nice moody effect, especially for the villains here. So all those angles of the face, I'm going to think, where is the light hitting? Put the gray on the opposite side. Or anything that's being covered up, like his neck here, covered by his chin, can throw down a lot of gray. Behind that collar, more gray. So I'm just going to sculpt, it's like sculpting with color. I'm going to sculpt out these shapes. underneath that lip, along the side of his head there. And the color will dry a little lighter than what I applied there. You might actually see it kind of lighten up as it dries. I'm going to come in with a little bit darker gray, a neutral or a cool gray 4, for just a little more dark around his eyes. Then a few shadow spotty areas. Now I'm going to want to use this dark gray in the white part of his eyes too, for my, maybe a little bit here in his teeth. Now, longtime viewers, you know why I'm doing that. It's for my white trick. So since there's no white on, this is a colored art paper, if I want white, I have to translate that with white colored pencil. This is a Derwent Inktense white colored pencil, but you can use just about any brand. So now when I color in that area, I can color over that darker gray to lighten it up to just the right shadow shade. Just a little bit of white there. We don't want too much white because we don't want him looking too bright, too bright-eyed. And a little bit through his teeth there, just to convey that white. Maybe we put a little bit of white in the armor here, just for some little shiny gold highlights. So just a little bit. Not going to go nuts with it. Just a little subtleties there. Actually, now that I look at it, I want to put a little deeper shadow. It's back to that neutral gray 4. I want a little deeper shadow up in there, so it really pops this part of his collar forward more. Maybe a little deeper shadow right down there, too, just to convey the curve. All right, so that takes care of the initial Thanos, but now we're going to do a background here. I've done this for other illustrations, and I think it would work really well here and would look really cool. So we're going to put a little more time and attention into the background and really capture a lot of the elements of what we know as Thanos. So we got Thanos himself. That's pretty clear, obvious. It's Thanos. But he's known for desiring the Infinity Stones. So since I don't want to draw the stones in here, but I want to capture the essence of those stones. And with that, I can utilize color, the colors of the stones. And I can do it as kind of like a space background. A lot of people have asked me to do a tutorial on how I do space backgrounds. Well, this will kind of give you that feeling. So I'm going to work in the dark parts of space first. So I'm just going to go through here and put some neutral gray 7 in some selected chunks of the space behind him to create this space, like a space nebula. Now I'm going to lighten that up with a neutral gray 5. I'm going to come in with some of this a little bit. I'm not going to worry about blending these grays too much just yet. These all will blend together here momentarily. And then some neutral gray 3, a lighter shade. So we're slowly building this nebula. I'm going to come in with more light neutral grays. Now in these open chunky spots are going to be different colors of the Infinity Stones. So let's start with some red. We're going to work in the red stone. So the red, this is the red portion of the nebula. So I'm going to color this red, R24, over those grays. Maybe a bit of a lighter, maybe a little pink, RV15. And we let all this ink kind of blend together. So that's where the red stone is represented. Next up, let's try the green stone. So we'll do a little G14. So let the green and the gray and the red merge together. And then come in with a brighter shade of green, the YG03. pull that down. Then let's see. Let's come in with, let's do the purple stone. So I'm going to go with some V04, coloring over that section there, and let the purple and the greens blur together so it all kind of blends. See how it's all blending into a real smooth sort of nebula? And then a V01 is a lighter shade there. So let's see, what are the other colors? We have blue, orange, and yellow, I believe, would be the last of the stones. So let's see, blue. We'll go yellow, blue, orange, I think. So let's work in some yellow. Go use a pretty bright yellow here, some V08. To some V06. And now for the blue, we're going to start with some B02. Coloring this blue over the yellow part and then further on down. So we want all the colors to kind of blend together. Then some B01. And then we finish this off with the orange stone. So we'll start with some RV68. The soul gem here. And some YR12. So I come in with a mid-range and then a lighter shade. And then I let those colors kind of blur up in there. So I'm going to come in with some lighter grays here to kind of fill out the rest of the area. Some little neutral too. And go over some of my darker space spots. Just kind of blur it all together. So we got the infinity stones kind of represented behind him in a colorful space nebula sort of look. Now, what do you need in a space nebula? You need stars. We need stars up in here. Now, I'm not talking about Robert Downey Jr. and Josh Brolin. I'm talking about little teeny tiny stars. And so I'm using my Uniball Sigma white gel pen. And I'm just going to put in stars of different clusters and different sizes. So like a big star. So right in the center of each section will be a big gem star to represent each stone. Actually, we need to put his white outline, so I want to do that before I start putting all those stars in. So just going right around the perimeter. Bringing the white line right up to the purple line, but not over the purple line if I can avoid it. I don't want to lose the shape of my line weight. The thickness and the thinness of the line. And now I can go in here and cluster in these stars. Now I want to try to make it not too uniform. I don't want the same amount of space between each star. That's too static. So I want to have some sections where they're really close together and some sections where they're really far apart. Now, because I want it to look like it is, what's the word I'm looking for? I want them to look scattered, but I'm having to create that scattered. It's not a true scatter because, or a true randomness to the star placement. I'm having to convey the illusion of that because I'm in control of where each of these stars go. So it's very easy to make it look like to place these stars in a uniform fashion. And I think if it's too uniform, it can be a little too stagnant, a little too boring. But it's difficult to kind of work against that because if I had white paint, I could just splatter it and it'd have this chaotic, randomized star pattern. But I don't have really the capabilities of doing that right now. So when I don't have paint or the tools to splatter, and then I'd have to section off this part of Thanos here so that he didn't get covered with stars. So I'm kind of having to just fake the randomness. I can do that by clustering and making some slightly larger and slightly smaller stars. Leave some bigger gaps, open areas of places where there would be no stars. Or some lonely stars. I think I'm going to use this spot here to put my name and date. So I'm going to leave that open. So I didn't leave myself a lot of space. That's okay. Bring some stars right to his outline. There we go. There's a space background, space nebula for Thanos. What I want to do here is put a little bit of a reflective highlight in his eye. I indicated it here in the line art. I'm using the Uniball, or not the Uniball, I'm using the Jelly Roll. It's kind of hard to read the label there. Jelly Roll white gel pen. It's a much smaller tip, so it lets me do a much tinier, finer highlight. So it just gives a bit of a gleam in his eye because, you know, he's excited to get a hold of these Infinity Stones and even drop in some even smaller stars here if I want. Got to be careful not to use up the whole space and clutter it up with too many stars. So just a little tiny highlight just to give him a little life to his eye, but not a big highlight to where it makes him look too youthful or too happy. I don't want that to happen. I'm going to come in with my purple micron here and just adjust the bottom side of his chin here. Now that I've done the colors, I see that I can make this line a little thicker. Maybe a little bit here on the bridge of the nose, just to give a little more weight to his face. Now I can come in and put in my signature. I'm going to use my smallest green, or not green, black. Black is like, how did I get the word green? I think I was looking at this color green when I was saying this. Black micron here, so I can get a real fine line to fit my name in this very small space. To where it fits, but is still legible. And then today's date is, I believe it's the 9th today, right? Yes, it is the 9th. So we're just going to stack the date here. The 9th of April 2020. And there is Thanos on an indigo colored post-it. You can't even really see the color of the post-it note color except for in these spots right here that I left open on his face. Otherwise, we covered it all up with with marker, but I think the color of the paper really plays well to Thanos's skin color, to where it was just the right shade for the kind of highlight area. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Oh, we're going to add one more little effect here, something I think can be really fun, little extra eye candy. This is kind of a bit of a challenging thing here, but all this ink has dried. I'm just doing a slight touch, and so I can, if any white paint comes up on my hands, I know that it's not dry yet, but I know it's dry. I'm going to come back with this Jelly Roll white gel pen, and we're going to give each stone a shine here. Using my triangle here, my drafting tool, I'm drawing a straight line down, and then a straight line vertically. So horizontal and vertical gives it a shine, like it's a shining star. So again, for the blue, line gets a little thicker towards the circle and then away from the circle. Just gives each of these little stars a little extra life here in the background. Let's see, we'll go green, then slide over a little bit, do red, slide over more and do purple. Then do the horizontal lines next, making sure that the triangle does not touch the wet ink. So I have it angled up away from me a little bit off of the artboard, so it's just the edge touching the paper. And a little bit there for the purple. And there we go. Some little extra star shines on each individual gem or stone, infinity stone. And that, my friends, is the finished Thanos Post-it illustration. This was a lot of fun to do. My first time to draw the Josh Brolin, his portrayal of Thanos in the movie, but taking it to my Marvel Comics art style. So not so much a life drawing, but my rendition of the movie version in my comic book style. So let's flip the camera around here and we can wrap up today's art live stream. Just have to readjust the rig. And there we go. Hey gang, let me plug in. Do you like these lights here? If you missed past couple of days, my buddy, Larry Stucker, who used to ink my Young Justice comics, he got me these lights here to add a little extra to my live streams here. So I thought I chose purple in honor of Thanos here, the Thanos Post-it. Now I'll have a shot of this on my social media, so make sure you're following me on my social media. I'll have those listed in the video description below, as well as a link to the Instagram post of this illustration so you can see the final work here. But do make sure you're following me on Instagram, Twitter, Art of Todd Nauck Facebook page. Yeah, so I hope you're staying safe during this coronavirus season. Please stay safe. Please wash those hands. And please, cover your mouth. If you're able to make or wear a mask when you go out in your area, depending on what's going on for the guidelines for your area. Please stay safe. We want to knock coronavirus out as soon as possible so we can get back to normal, or as normal as we can be as soon as possible. So please stay safe with each other. Please stay good to each other. And remember, we're all going through this together. So, and if you encounter any doctor, nurse, grocery store worker, delivery person, postal carrier, trash collectors, police, firefighters, EMTs, any of these people that are on the front lines who are out there doing the things that we can't do, make sure you let them know how much you appreciate it. Say thank you. Thank you to the people who are out there, risking infection to provide the services that we need. So remember, let's all try to be as grateful as possible. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning for one more Marvel villain. I don't know if y'all caught the theme, but this week has been all Marvel villains. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned a little something if you were drawing along. And yeah, I will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Central, 4 p.m. Greenwich time. And yeah, we'll draw up one more villain. Who will it be? All right, gang. Thanks so much. I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing. Keep having fun. Take care, everybody.